Good evening. Welcome to California Today. We're happy to have you. I'm David Lam, sitting in for Liang Zhang. Here's a preview of today's stories. Twitter released its second installment of revealing private information on the company's operation. This time, it includes blacklisting of certain users. Attorneys general from half of the country made a statement against social media companies' immunity from certain responsibilities. Those revolve around user content that may lead to harming others. And the Chinese Communist Party has active police stations in the country. One of them is in the Golden State. Twitter released a revealing second installment of the so-called Twitter Files. It was published Thursday evening and shines a bright light on the secret blacklisting of conservatives happening at Twitter before the Elon Musk takeover. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the story.
Truth brings reconciliation. Those are the words Twitter CEO Elon Musk tweeted after the latest incendiary Twitter Files report was released by journalist Barry Weiss. In a series of tweets, Weiss revealed how Twitter employed shadow banning to reduce the visibility of tweets from conservative users. Weiss cited the example of Stanford's Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. He argued that COVID lockdowns would harm children. Twitter secretly placed him on a trends blacklist which prevented his tweets from trending. She also detailed how popular conservative talk show host Dan Bongino was hit with a search blacklist, or how Twitter set the account of conservative activist Charlie Kirk to Do Not Amplify. Weiss wrote that, quote, a new Twitter Files investigation reveals that teams of Twitter employees build blacklists, prevent disfavored tweets from trending, and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret without informing users. She stated that Twitter had previously denied doing such things, saying, quote, in 2018, Twitter's Vijay Gadde and Kayvon Bekpour said, we do not shadow ban, and we certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints or ideology. Weiss says Twitter executives and employees employed a different terminology, describing what they were doing as visibility filtering, or VF. Twitter used VF to block searches of individual users, to limit the scope of a particular tweet's discoverability, to block select users' posts from ever appearing on the trending page, and from inclusion in hashtag searches. Twitter employees told Weiss that Twitter controls visibility quite a bit, and that they control the amplification of people's content, adding that normal people do not know how much they do. Weiss wrote that there was a secret group for more controversial accounts, the Site Integrity Policy Escalation Support, or SIPPES. It included Vijay Gadde, Yoel Roth, subsequent CEOs Jack Dorsey, and Parag Agrawal, and others. Weiss wrote that that is where the biggest, most politically sensitive decisions got made, and that there would be no ticket or anything for those. One account warranting that level of scrutiny was Libs of TikTok. The account with 1.4 million followers was subjected to 6 suspensions in 2022 alone. Twitter repeatedly informed account owner Chaya Raichik that she had been suspended for violating Twitter's policy against hateful conduct. However, an internal SIPPES memo acknowledges that Libs of TikTok did not violate the hateful conduct policy. It justified the suspensions by claiming her posts encouraged online harassment of hospitals and medical providers by insinuating that gender-affirming healthcare is equivalent to child abuse or grooming. Weiss wrote that they are just getting started with their reporting. She says that documents cannot tell the whole story here. She says to look out for the next installment and tagged journalist Matt Taibbi. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta, along with AGs throughout the nation, wants social media companies to be held liable for how their products work, specifically when they use algorithms to make targeted recommendations of harmful third-party content.
In a December amicus brief in the Gonzalez versus Google lawsuit, a bipartisan coalition of 24 lawyers are urging the U.S. Supreme Court to adjust the interpretation of the publisher immunity that social media companies have. According to Bonta's office, under the current interpretation of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, states are severely hampered from holding social media companies accountable. Bonta says this was not Congress's intent when it carved out an exception. Companies like Google are not just publishing material from users, they're exploiting it to make a profit. I urge the Supreme Court to adopt a more reasonable view of publisher immunity under the Communications Decency Act that's in line with the Congress' intent. They also want the Supreme Court to reverse the lower court's decision to immunize Google's subsidiary YouTube from action. The initial lawsuit came from families of victims in an ISIS attack in Paris, France. They sued Google for recommending videos related to the terrorist group, claiming it radicalized certain viewers. A bipartisan group of 26 attorneys general joined together, ranging from Alabama, Alaska, to Oregon, D.C., and New York. They hope they will be able to preserve the state's traditional authority to determine appropriate remedies for harms to private parties. Liang Zhang, NTD News, California.
A nonprofit group has identified 2 more police stations in U.S. cities with ties to China's communist regime. The newly identified sites are among more than 100 police outposts that are spread out across 53 nations. NTD's Arlene Richards reports.
A nonprofit group has discovered 48 new overseas police stations worldwide with ties to China's communist regime, 2 of them in the U.S. Where? In Los Angeles and New York City. Safeguard Defenders, a nonprofit organization, reported the findings in a recent updated report. The update identifies 102 total stations internationally. The report found the regime began setting up the stations in 2016. The reason? The group's campaign director, Laura Harth, told CBC News the facilities are part of a transnational repression network.
These stations have been established by at least 4 local public security bureaus back in China, the 4 we identified, but building on a pre-existing network of United Front Work organizations.
The United Front Work organization is an agency in China that works to advance the regime's interests abroad. For example, they spread propaganda, conduct foreign influence operations, and help transfer technology to communist China. Harth claims the CCP is using these stations to surveil Chinese dissidents and force them to return to China for persecution. But she said the CCP's networks are also involved in other activities. A Chinese-American group in upstate New York is educating local residents on how the CCP is spreading its influence in U.S. communities. On Thursday, the Mount Hope Chinese Association hosted a panel discussion on the threat of the CCP. The panel explained the methods the CCP uses to infiltrate societies. College professor and former U.S. Army officer Sean Lin said the CCP is carrying out unrestricted warfare without guns.
For example, in the chemical warfare, you know about fentanyl, right? The China produces fentanyl, and then, or sometimes the raw material for fentanyl and its derivatives, and shipping to Mexico and then coming to the United States.
Chris Chappell, host of YouTube show China Uncensored, explained the CCP's information warfare.
They're trying to actively shape how Americans think about China. And they do this through tremendous control over American media and American big tech.
He said 90% of U.S. media are owned by 5 companies, and those companies all have business interests in communist China. As for the overseas police stations, Safeguard Defenders reported that law enforcement agencies in 12 countries, including the U.S., have launched investigations. Arlene Richards, NTD News, New York.
The Pentagon has an early Christmas present for big tech. On Wednesday, it handed out cloud computing contracts worth a total of $9 billion to 4 firms.
Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Oracle is to build the so-called joint war fighting cloud capability. Tech sector analyst Dan Ives from Wedbush says it's the single biggest cloud beltway deal and a huge win for all 4 vendors. It marks a change for how the Pentagon awards the deal. 3 years ago, Microsoft had the contract all to itself, worth $10 billion. Later, Amazon and Oracle challenged it and pretty much brought the deal back to the drawing board. Ives also says the new deal is a huge vote of confidence for all 4 companies' cloud platforms. And for the U.S. military, this will be the backbone for the Pentagon's modern war operations and further operations.
The Los Angeles city clerk recently approved the recall petition against one of the city's council members. That's after ongoing protests have erupted in response to him being secretly recorded in a scandalous conversation. An effort to recall LA City Councilman Kevin De Leon has gained the approval of the Los Angeles city clerk. The recall supporters have 3 months to collect the required signatures to trigger a recall election. Organizers need to amass just over 20,000 signatures from registered voters. A recall election would likely occur sometime in 2023. The move to recall De Leon came after a leaked audio captured him making controversial comments on the topic of district realigning. He and 3 others were caught attempting to reorganize council lines in their favor. Council President Nuri Martinez and Federation of Labor President Ron Herrera have resigned. De Leon has not, and protests against him have continued for this very reason. According to the California Globe, recall organizer Pauline Atkins, who has tried 3 times to recall De Leon, said the difference this time is like night and day. De Leon responded to the Globe saying the recall is organized by a, quote, group of political extremists. Los Angeles' power to guide its own redistricting may be removed following the leaked audio scandal in October. A new Senate bill would move redistricting into an independent panel.
Senator Maria Elena Durazo authored Senate Bill 52 on December 5th. The bill seeks to curb the Los Angeles City Council's power to redistrict. Redistricting takes place every decade following the U.S. Census. It requires the Los Angeles City Charter to redraw council lines so that each of the city's 15 districts has an equal population and political representation. The bill would establish an independent committee of 24 members to redraw districts in Los Angeles. Durazo's bill aims to establish a completely independent committee to avoid city council influence. The proposed bill requires all, quote, records of the commission relating to redistricting and all data considered by the commission in drawing a draft map or the final map are public records. Although the Los Angeles City Council positions are nonpartisan, all the councilors are registered Democrats.
We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we've got for you when we come back. We've got a lot of news about education in the state. As strikes go on, several people were arrested in Sacramento. Students tell about their difficulties with the lack of university staff. And California is beginning the largest dam removals in the United States history. The governor went to the event near the border with Oregon. That and more on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, David Lamb. A stretch of Highway 1 in Big Sur has reopened after a rainstorm created a rock slide. Travelers had to navigate around signs during the road work. Caltrans reopened the 2-mile stretch from the south end of Big Creek Vista Point to the north end of Dolan Point on Wednesday evening. Caltrans announced road closures on December 3rd to allow the crew to clean up debris and repair the roads after a rainstorm caused a rock slide. Police arrested over a dozen workers at a University of California administrative office for going on strike. 17 academic workers were arrested in a Sacramento-based University of California administrative office. As 2,000 striking workers gathered outside for a march, some workers staged a sit-in at the university president's office, leading to their arrest. The arrests come as a workers' strike enters its 4th week across all 10 UC campuses. The strikers are demanding higher wages, improved leave, and child care support. The strikes academic workers are creating across 10 University of California campuses are taking a toll on students who want to learn. They say it's approaching finals week, but they lack resources and don't know their grades.
A month into the nation's largest strike involving higher education, students are feeling the stress. Their classes are canceled, with no one to answer their questions and uncertainty about how they will be graded as they wrap up the year. Colleges and universities increasingly rely on graduate student employees to do teaching, grade papers, and conduct research that had been previously handled by tenured faculty.
So it's been really rough. Like, while I do stand with the GSIs and I would 100% think that they should be compensated fairly, I think administration should have acted faster and taken more of an effort to end the strike before our finals week. Because right now we have finals next week and there's absolutely no resources to help us, and a lot of us don't know where our grades stand. So
graduate student instructors, or GSIs, are postdoctoral employees and researchers. Many of them have refused to return to work until they reach a deal with the University of California. Some 48,000 student employees walked off the job on November 14th to demand higher wages and better benefits. The employees, represented by a labor union, say they were left with no other choice but to strike to demand increased wages necessary to keep up with the sky-high rents in cities like Berkeley, San Diego, and Los Angeles.
A lot of folks can't afford to pay rent. A lot of people are rent burdened, and that means that the low paychecks that we get from the university just don't cut it. Considering the amount of work that we do for the university, we're really out here to show the university how much we matter and just get those paychecks that we frankly deserve to live in a very expensive housing market.
It's very tough. With my rent sort of going up in the middle of the strike, I am very concerned about my ability, depending on how this shakes out, whether or not I'll be able to continue to make rent.
Last week, university officials agreed to a 29% pay hike for postdoctoral employees and academic researchers. They make up about 12,000 of the 48,000 workers. The university system also agreed to provide more family leave time, childcare subsidies, and job security. Many University of California students fear the strike may extend well into next year, disrupting their plans to apply to degree programs.
I think most of my classes have been either changed to Zoom or canceled, and at least the majority of my classes are taught by GSIs and lecturers. I think only one of my classes is taught by a professor.
The GSIs play an instrumental role in all of our learning. You could argue that most of our learning comes from them, so obviously without having them here, it's a huge blow for our education, and it's definitely hard to keep up with studies without them. They're an important resource.
The average pay for UC student employees is about $24,000 annually. Many academic workers say they have to skip meals or take additional work to make ends meet. In a statement, UC and UAW reached tentative agreements for UC student employees. The university said it has proposed total compensation for those working part-time to range from about $47,000 to $78,000. That will depend on the bargaining unit title and campus. It is expected to take effect October 2024. The UC is also offering childcare reimbursement, 8 weeks of paid pregnancy leave, among other benefits.
The largest dam removal in the United States is to take place in California next year. The governor says it's to help the environment, but some locals are questioning the motive.
California is moving ahead with the largest dam removal in American history. That's to remove 4 hydroelectric dams on the Klamath River, located along the Oregon-California border. Governor Gavin Newsom celebrated the announcement with Oregon Governor Kate Brown and tribal leaders at the river.
And that's when people come together across differences, but with a sense of urgency, of purpose, and passion, and wisdom. And how proud I am, Governor Brown, to be a partner with you and your remarkable leadership over all of these years, from the day I got into office, where she focused my attention on this as a core responsibility of being governor of California, to, and I wasn't joking when I said this, the moment we walked in, where she said, you guys need to put up more money at the end to keep this going.
Last month, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission approved the plan to remove the 4 hydroelectric dams. Supporters say restoring 400 miles of the river will benefit salmon, tribes, and communities in the basin. According to Oregon Public Broadcasting, opponents living near the areas where the dams are located have noticed a decrease in their property value. They also worry of flooding and the sediment buildup after the removal. Brandon Chris, a board supervisor chairman in Siskiyou County, told OPB that he has concerns on how the removal will impact the surrounding communities. He listed property tax revenue, jobs, recreation, and lakefront property on the reservoirs. California and Oregon will equally fund the demolition project. Klamath River Renewal Corporation is using a $500 million budget to assist with removal. The construction work will begin next year with the biggest dam scheduled to be removed in 2024.
Now to NTD's Thomas Christian for your sports roundup.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you the California Today Sports Roundup.
Caleb Williams is viewed as the overwhelming favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and that belief only bolstered Thursday night when the Southern California quarterback won both the Maxwell and Walter Camp Awards as the top player in college football at the College Football Awards Show. Williams set a USC single-season record by scoring 47 touchdowns this season, and he leads the nation with 37 scoring passes. He guided the Trojans to an 11-2 record in his first season at the school after transferring from Oklahoma following USC's hiring of former Sooners coach Lincoln Riley. Williams, who has set a school record with 4,447 total yards, said winning the award was important to him. He has thrown for 4,075 yards and been intercepted just 4 times. 2 other quarterbacks, Tennessee's Hendon Hooker and Ohio State's CJ Stroud, were the other Maxwell finalists. The Philadelphia Phillies are in agreement on a massive deal for shortstop Trey Turner. The 29-year-old free agent will reportedly receive an 11-year, $300 million contract with a full no-trade clause. Dodger fans will be sad to see Turner go. He was a consistent bat in their lineup, averaging .298 with 21 homers and a career-high 100 RBIs in 160 games with Los Angeles in 2022. He also stole 27 bases, scored 101 runs, and led the National League in at-bats and plate appearances. Turner won a World Series with Washington in 2019 and won the NL batting title with a .328 average in 2021. Baker Mayfield's debut as the Rams quarterback got off to a strong start Thursday night as Los Angeles beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Mayfield wasn't even on the Rams roster until Tuesday of this week, but still managed to complete 22 of his 35 passing attempts for a touchdown and no interceptions. Ben Skowronek led the Rams in receiving with 7 catches for 89 yards, and running back Cam Akers converted 12 rushing attempts into 42 yards on the ground. LA's other backup quarterback, John Wolford, got the start over Mayfield, but was pulled from the game after the Rams' first offensive possession went 3-and-out. Mayfield took over and led the Rams to a comeback win with 2 touchdowns in the final 10 minutes of the game. Raiders quarterback Derek Carr completed 11 of 20 passing attempts for 137 yards and 2 interceptions. Running back Josh Jacobs led the Raiders in yards from scrimmage with 99 yards on 27 carries. The LA Rams will next travel to Green Bay to play the Packers on Sunday Night Football. Rams 17, Raiders 16.
And that's all for the sports.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like for you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-Today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm David Lam, sitting in for Liang Jing. Have a wonderful weekend.